know, Ron the Car Guys. Yeah, Ron the Car Guys' new theme song. Everybody's singing out the same sheet of music here this morning. It is 6:44. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to visit with our own macho man, Ron the Car Guy, as we are talking fluids here, I guess, this morning.
¿Quién es más macho?
Charlie knows me well. That's my theme song.
So how about that?
We are talking about fluids today, and with the rain that's out there, it's washing all the fluids off the roads right now that cars have leaked, and it is a little bit slick out there. I noticed when I came in,
and that happens whenever it starts raining again.
It does.
After it hasn't for a while.
Exactly. It cleans up the roads, cleans up the cars a little bit. I'm sure it'll blow some of the dust off the tilt-a-whirl out at the fair, and everything will be nice and clean on the midway.
Is it kind of like the big slide? Because they say when the big slide's wet, you can't go on it because it's too fast.
Well,
so I imagine it brings up the oils and you just go whoosh. We want to test it out when it's wet.
Well, see, the big slide, I used to have to dry the big slide off in Minnesota at the Minnesota State Fair. My brothers and I were performing up there. Whenever it would rain overnight, we'd have to go dry it. And it's actually just the opposite. You'd get stuck. If it was really wet, you'd go way too fast. But right when it starts drying, you get stuck halfway down. Oh. And they didn't like that. So you had to take the burlap sacks and go down there a whole bunch of times. I went down like 78 or 80 times one time.
So did you like slide down on the burlap sack?
Yeah.
That's how you dried it off.
Yeah, that's how you dried it off.
And then everybody got a wet sack out of the deal.
No question.
Next time they went on there. They need Aquapel for a slide. That's what they need.
I was going to say.
Aquapel and a hairdryer.
So how's this transition working to cars this morning? All right.
That's right.
It's going to.
Yeah, well, we're done talking about the slide. No, we're going to talk about fluids. And this kind of came about, this topic, because I overheard some people talking last week, and they were having a steering problem with their car. And the young lady said that she had it checked out and stuff, and it was just the fluid. The fluid was just low. They just had to put fluid in. And when I hear stuff like that, I just start to cringe because it's not normal to just have to add fluids, to your vehicle. I mean, the only two fluids that you should normally have to add are gasoline and washer fluid because they're consumables.
Right.
And so I just wanted to talk about some of the different fluids. I mean, engine oil. Occasionally, I mean, some cars can use some oil.
Older cars.
Yeah,
exactly.
My car in high school.
See?
How many different?
Well, that was abnormal too. That was a large quantity of oil.
That's right.
How many different fluids do we have in our vehicles these days?
Well, we've got, most cars have, the major ones are engine oil, and then we've got coolant in the cooling system, which is also called antifreeze. We've got power steering fluid. We've got transmission fluid. And then we have brake fluid, and then when you get into maybe a rear-wheel drive vehicle or a four-wheel drive, you could have some differential fluids or some transfer case fluids. But oil is the only one that's in there that is maybe a consumable, and it depends on how long it's been in there and what's going on inside the engine. I mean, manufacturers kind of as a safety net have said if your car consumes up to a quart of oil in 1,500 miles, it could be normal. I mean, so
that seems like a lot.
It is a lot.
Yeah.
Well, especially in today's cars, because I mean, let's face it. Of the four of us, one of any of us actually check the oil, in the car that we drive. I mean, cars just don't utilize oil anymore if they're properly taken care of.
Right.
So to occasionally put some oil in an engine, not overly concerning, but brake fluid. Maybe, and this is a big maybe, once in the life of a set of brake pads might you have to top off the brake fluid, because as the brake pads wear down, the fluid from the master cylinder fills up that void in the calipers which apply them. So there are some vehicles that are a little sensitive. If the fluid gets a little bit low, it might turn the light on. So again, that's a big maybe. You might have to put a little bit in there.
And if somebody bleeds your brakes for any particular reason.
Exactly.
Letting a little bit of the fluid out to get the air out.
To get the air out, or as maintenance if it's starting to corrode or something like that. But not on a routine basis. You shouldn't have to be putting brake fluid in all the time. That's dangerous. There's a problem.
Right.
And then as we talked about the power steering fluid, that would brought all this up to begin with and kind of made me cringe. I mean, that's a closed hydraulic system. You should never have to add fluid, to your power steering system. And if you do, there's a leak, and it's always cheaper to fix a leak than wait for whatever that fluid is supposed to lubricate to die,
now, what do you
cause damage.
Right.
What do you tell people that say, well, I'll just get some type of power steering fluid that has leak seal in it?
Leak seal.
Because you see that popping up in different places.
I've never, you know, the different sealers and stuff that they make for, you know, transmissions and power steering, stuff like that. The way those work is they'll actually, you know, condition or swell up a seal a little bit, and they could work, but they only work to the ability of being able to swell or condition that seal. I mean, and so in a nutshell, if you're seeing a leak on the ground, it's too big for that stuff to work. It might be good to put into an older car that doesn't have a problem yet to kind of keep everything moving and stuff, but you know, maybe as a preventative, but certainly not as a repair. If the fluid's on the ground,
time to get it fixed.
Exactly. A can of stuff's probably not going to fix that. Antifreeze, you know, again, that's a sealed system, operates, you know, under pressure. If you're adding coolant, adding antifreeze, that's probably the most common one that's added to a vehicle. There's a leak. There's a problem
there's a leak
there.
somewhere. Okay.
Yeah. A little unknown fact with coolant and antifreeze is, you know, it's under pressure when the engine runs, and people don't always understand why they put that under pressure. And the reason they do is they'll pressurize the system to 14 or 15 pounds. It's made to build that pressure up. That additional pressure raises the boiling point about 45 degrees.
Oh, wow.
So all of a sudden we're going from what would normally boil at around 212 degrees, and we're tacking 45 onto that. And that's why when you see on a temperature gauge, you know, a car's up around, you know, 240, 250 degrees, it's not boiling. It's because the pressurized in the system.
Okay.
So,
Makes sense.
and then transmission fluid, you know, 8 out of 10 transmissions that we rebuild at Westside Auto Pros are fluid related. Either the fluid is wore out and it's caused mechanical damage, bearings and stuff inside have seized up or broken, or it comes in with not enough fluid in there.
Or it's not there.
Yeah, the fluid's if it's not on the inside, then it was on the outside at one point.
And it's something you should notice on the garage floor.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're not talking, you know, the little pencil-sized dot that might appear here and there. I mean, you know, we're talking a sizable,
Like a pancake size.
Exactly. Yeah, if it gets to that size, you know, there's a problem. You just need to have it checked out. So,
Let's say we're not dealing with leaks or anything like that. Do we still have to have our fluids changed
oh,
ever so
absolutely,
often?
absolutely. They wear out. You know, you look at like power steering fluid. You know, that runs at under pressure. There's, you know, 6,000 to 14,000 pounds of pressure.
That's a lot more pressure.
Exactly, and it's going to wear out. I mean, its job is to become pressurized and prevent metal from rubbing on metal, or to push something. And in doing that, it gets hot. A heat builds up, and then the heat, you know, basically cooks the fluid to where it will wear out. So there's definitely service intervals on those. And the other thing to keep in mind with leaks too is my opinion is they're more critical now than ever, because manufacturers the way they're building cars, they're putting less fluid in them than we ever have.
Like with the electric cars these days or things like that?
Well, it's due to weight, because all cars are on a diet. We're trying to get better fuel mileage out of them. So, you know, instead of operating with 16 quarts of transmission, they're coming out with 12.
Right.
Power steering systems are smaller, and so now we have less fluid to lose. You know, when you think back, you know, as a kid, you know, you could have, I remember, you know, some of the cars that I had, probably similar to yours, Jason, they leaked everything, but you could have a larger leak underneath, and you knew that, you know, after 4 days of leaking, you could add fluid, where now we don't have that abundance of fluid.
Now, if you're experiencing any kind of fluid leaks, this is where you want to make a pit stop, because Ron will take care of it, right?
We will. We'll take good care of you at Westside Auto Pros.
Okay, now what about one more fluid that we failed to mention? Jackie has one of those special cars. She has the headlight fluid. How often should she change that?
Well, if it's halogen, it'll last longer. Halogen or HID fluid, but if
so
it's
you're
conventional,
okay. So you're okay for a while. So
yeah, but just change it whenever you top off the blinker fluid.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. It is 6:53. We'll be right back. And little known things about deodorant. Ron, coming up next.